I always forget. I always forget to look at my mic in OBS to make sure I'm not muted before I say anything. Oh my God. What day is it? It's Wednesday evening, right? Think so. I hope everybody's having a good Wednesday evening. Thursday if you're in Australia. I'll tell you what, man. We're gonna play tonight. We're gonna play. I was contemplating not playing it. I've calmed down since I was extremely upset earlier today. And I contemplated not streaming. He was in a movie, Power. It's one, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, or Honey, I Blew Up the Kids, just back in the '80s. And then I don't know what else he's been in. I've always liked him in anything I've seen him in. Anyway, this has been a crazy week, man. A crazy week. So first we had the Ukrainian refugee that got killed on that train, and the way the media's kind of handled it, and that kind of blew up this week. But she died in August, supposedly, from what I've heard. But the video of this came out this week, and it's brutal, man. It is it's nuts. If you haven't seen it, it's hard to watch. I do recommend people watching these videos at least once, mainly because you need to be aware of what's going on. You need to be aware of how brutal things can get and how crazy of a situation the US finds itself in. You saw the vid yesterday, and it's sad. Because I don't even know if she realized what happened. When you look at the vid, like a lot of vids, they kind of stop it right at the moment he's about to strike. But there is the video out there where you can actually watch the whole thing. And she looks shocked and surprised, staring at the attacker. She looks like she's kind of crying. She's probably in shock. I don't even know if she realized she was stabbed. I don't even think she realized it based on her expression and what how she acted. I don't think she realized it. And literally, what, 10, 15 seconds, she's passed out from loss of blood. She's on the floor. She's dying. I don't even think she realized what happened. And that in and of itself was hard to watch. And look, this ain't a black thing. I'm not trying to make it a race thing with this thing. You can make arguments that certain groups of people in the US have their problems, and there is data to back that up. But we have a problem with holding people accountable for their own actions. The guy was arrested 14 times. 14 times. And he was let out on a no cash bail in North Carolina, my home state, as long as he promised to show up in court. The dude looked like he was having issues in the video. He looked like he was mentally unwell. Like either he was on something, dealing with something, mentally just unwell. And so we have to start dealing with people who can't live in a civilized society. Whether that's more jails, whether that's more mental hospitals, actually treating the issue and stop worrying about making it, whether you actually do something or not, that's going to look bad politically or socially because the person happens to be black, or you might be looked at and accused of being racist because you're trying to hold someone accountable. That's part of the problem we're having nowadays. People are too afraid to do what they need to do to take steps to solve some of these problems because they will be crucified from a political standpoint, crucified from the people that they associate with, because it's racist to hold some of these people accountable because, they're oppressed. They have all these issues. It's not their fault. And, maybe they have a point. Who knows? But the point is, these people can't be in a civilized society. That's the problem. So that brings me to what happened today. Now, the thing that happened with the girl, that was very saddening. It was disgusting. It played into what we already kind of knew was happening in society. But today, it kind of blew everything up for me. Like back in, was it July of last year? I think it was. Trump was shot at one of his events up in Pennsylvania. I think it was, nicked him in his ear, and that was like a red flag for me. I was like, holy shit, these people are nuts. We're in for a world of hurt. This is crossing a line that I think a lot of people don't understand the ramifications of what just happened today. Whether you like Charlie Kirk or not, this is going to wake people up. And I don't mean just, oh, they're going to come out and vote. I don't think that's not what I'm worried about. What I'm worried about is people who are going to see what one side is not afraid to do. And we've kind of already had that understanding a little bit up until now. But there is no doubt at this point what one side is willing to do. My fear is, look, listen, the fact of the matter is they're not the only side with radicalized people. They're not. There will be more radicalized people today on both sides after what happened today. And both of those groups will continue to do this. The side that hasn't really done this much, on the right, they are the ones, there's going to be radicalized people there that are going to come out and then take matters into their own hands and say, okay, you shot him, I will go find someone else and I will take them out too. And it's just going to escalate. And that's scary shit. Because here's the problem. If the violence continues to escalate, especially if it's political, what's going to happen is you're going to have people in politics, in government, that's going to be like, we have to stop this. We have to shut this down. And the only way they're going to be able to do that is by trampling our civil liberties, violating our rights as citizens of this nation. And the problem with that is it's almost always the case that if that happens, you're never getting those rights back. We're at the point now where both sides thinks the other side is evil, thinks the other side will destroy America. You've heard that in the language for a decade now. You can only say this stuff for so long until people start internalizing it. They start believing it. And they start acting on it. And I don't mean at the voting booth. You can only call people Nazis, socialists, communists, fascists, so much before people realize that, hey, these people are that. I need to do something about it because we know through history class how evil those types of people are. I'm not going to let them take over my country, save democracy, and they'll take it into their own hands. It only takes one nut job to cause a massacre. Doesn't need a gun. They use a car. They use knives. They use pressure cookers. They use any sort of thing. Look, there's a lot of smart and crazy people out there. They can always come about some of these things. This guy founded Turning Point USA when he was 19. 19. And he was 31. He had 2 kids and a wife. 2 young kids that will not know their father. And so this is what he was doing. This is all he did right here. This is all he did. Let me turn on the desktop audio so you guys hear this. This is all he did. He wasn't going out calling for the death of people, calling for violence. No, he went to schools and helped questions, Q&A. He would debate people. This is all he did.
Say I'm a transgender male. What age should kids be able to get things like hormone therapy? Because I don't know what's true, what's not.
Tell me, are you comfortable telling me your story?
I've known that since 3rd grade, and I'm currently 19, almost 20. I've known basically since then. I didn't start going by a different name until 7th and 8th grade. I just don't know with the whole medical stuff, what's true, what's not, what's helpful, because I've heard so many different opinions.
First of all, thank you so much for that.
Yeah, of course.
So I'm going to have an opinion that very few people will ever tell you, which is I want you to be very cautious putting drugs into your system in the pursuit of changing your body. Mm-hmm. I instead encourage you to work on what's going on in your brain first. I think what you need first and foremost is just a diagnosis. Mm-hmm. Just someone that is going to listen to what you've gone through, listen to what else is going on. My prayer for you, and again, very few people will say this, I actually want to see you be comfortable in how you were born.
Yeah.
I know that you might not feel that way, but I think that is something that you can achieve. I think that
it doesn't show as many examples as I thought it would. But that's all he did. He went to colleges, he went to places, and he talked to people. He would go and talk to people who didn't believe necessarily what he believed. And he would have discussions, he would have debates, and they killed him for this. The problem I'm having with where we're at currently is they lost this previous election at the ballot box. And a lot of the policies they don't like are getting passed. A lot of the policies that they had passed are getting rolled back. And they're losing on all fronts right now. And they can't handle it. And so these people, the LGBT, the left, the liberal, all these people on that side of the aisle, their whole identity is wrapped up in their politics. That's all they are. So when you disagree with them, you're essentially disagreeing with who they are. You're violating who they are as a person in their mind. And they can't handle it. It's not like you and me. They can't just shut off X. They can't just shut off the internet and go play a video game or go hang out with their friends or go do housework. They can't, because all they'll think about is the fact that you disagreed with them. And it drives them nuts. It drives them bonkers. And it leads people to being radicalized to a point where they do something like this, because they're so mentally unstable that if you disagree with them, you are essentially, in their mind, erasing them as a person, saying that they don't belong anymore. And that's not what we're trying to say. You can't hate the news media enough. And I've got a few clips from what MSNBC was saying right after this happened, and it is nuts. So listen to this.
As we were just talking about a moment ago with Alan, after one of the Doge employees was allegedly attacked in Washington, D.C., that's what Donald Trump used as justification to send in federal troops into Washington, D.C. to get things under control. The carjacking situation, he used that. And I know it's hard to predict the future, Mark, but you can imagine the administration using this as a justification for something.
I must admit, I'm at a loss to guess as to what happens next. But Kirk, because
as we were just
this individual, and I've got another clip of her too, which I don't know how. If I was MSNBC, I would fire her today, because the problem is she's more worried about what Trump may do than what Charlie Kirk, happened to Charlie Kirk. And you could say, well, maybe she's worried about violating people, the government violating their civil liberties. Like I mentioned, that is a legitimate concern. But from the other clips that I have of MSNBC and her, I don't think that's the direction that they're coming from. I really don't. And we'll listen to this next clip here.
In which a shooting like this happens.
Yeah, and again, I emphasize what you just emphasized. We don't know any of the full details of this. That we don't know if this was a supporter shooting their gun off in celebration, or so we have no idea.
They're on a college campus. You think a supporter is going to shoot their gun off in celebration and actually shoot this guy? Really? Look, I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but a lot of people on the right love guns. And a lot of people on the right shoot guns quite frequently. They go to gun ranges. They know how to use guns. 1. 2, they know that you can't fire off your gun in the air or some sort of celebratory shot. We're not Yosemite Sam. That's against the law. We're not Joe Biden. We don't think, hey, just step on your deck, fire off a warning shot, and maybe they'll go away. No, you can't do that. It is against the law. You don't fire your gun unless you are intending to kill or stop someone. This is bullshit. And then it gets worse. It gets worse. Listen to this numbnut on MSNBC. Listen to this numbnut.
And I think that's the environment we're in, that people just, you can't stop with these sort of awful thoughts you have and then saying these awful words and not expect awful actions to take place.
Matt.
And that's the unfortunate.
Listen to this again.
You can't stop with these sort of awful thoughts you have and then saying these awful words and not expect awful actions.
So he's basically blaming Charlie Kirk for getting shot. You can't stop with these awful thoughts that you have and then not expect awful things to happen to you? What type of world? Look, I don't want the government to be, big brother in our lives, right? I don't. But as far as I'm concerned, shit like this on MSNBC is entirely irresponsible. And I would be seriously considering, if I was the FCC, of taking their license away. I really would. For shit, especially for what he just said. Look, you can say this chick here is dumb. You can say that, right? The chick right here she's dumb. This guy, what he said on MSNBC, in my opinion, is very dangerous. Look, we joke around about the fuck around, find out, right? Because that does happen. But we don't say that necessarily for someone to get killed because of the opinion they have. If you have an opinion and you voice it, that's freedom of speech, but it's not freedom of consequences. Yes, I understand that. You could go to jail for inciting violence. You could potentially lose your job. You could potentially lose some friends. You could potentially, have family members just disavow you. Sure. But to say that, hey, you're going to get killed because of what you said, that's just the way shit is. You can't expect it to be any other way. This is bullshit. This, oh my God, this threw me in a rage when I first saw this. It's ridiculous. We go over to, because this is all I see on X right now, Charlie Kirk. Everything is Charlie Kirk on X. And so we have people, according to Reddit, that seem to love this. I don't know how easy you can see these things because it isn't the best screenshot. But bummer, time to release those files. Well, that's terrible. Anyway, what's everyone having for dinner? I truly hope we're in the find out era for shitty human beings. And then someone else correctly reminds this guy, the other side thinks you're the shitty one. I mean, this is just a snapshot of everybody. Someone else said, do we have an update on the condition of the bullet? I mean, these people are nuts, man. They're nuts. Then you have the governor of Illinois. Instead of approaching this the way he should have, he started making some valid points at the beginning. But then he's got to bring it back around to blaming Republicans and blaming Trump.
Sympathy to Charlie Kirk's family and to Charlie Kirk, who obviously has, become a target for somebody. I don't know whether it's political violence because I don't know who.
He doesn't know if it's political violence. Well, look, anybody with a brain, anybody with 2 working brain cells will know this is political violence because he's a political activist. All he does is political stuff. He goes to colleges, he has debates, he has talks. How would you not be able to say off the bat that this is political violence? That's ridiculous. This is why I can't support people like this.
Who did it? I know they seem to have somebody in custody. But I will say that political violence, unfortunately, has been ratcheting up in this country. We saw the shootings.
He's right about this. And he's going to mention the whole Minnesota state lawmakers that got killed, which was horrible. And was also a huge red flag for me of what was coming down the aisle.
The killings in Minnesota. We've seen other political violence occur in other states. And I would just
Here we go.
say,
January 6th. Watch.
It's got to stop. And I think there are people who are fomenting it in this country. I think the president's rhetoric often foments it. We've seen the January 6th rioters who clearly,
Hold on. Listen.
We've seen the January 6th rioters who clearly, have tripped a new era of.
Oh. Okay, so here's the thing. He blames January 6th as tripping a new era of political violence. Here's a question for this J.B. Pritzker, the governor of Illinois. How many people actually died January 6th? Only one. And who caused that? It wasn't the protesters. Now, I'm not condoning what this individual did, but it wasn't the protesters. It was like either Secret Service or their security there in the house or government building, right? I don't think she should have been killed. I think they acted a little too harshly and too quickly, but she was shot and killed. But she was the only one. Now, you can say there were police officers that died. I think that's true, but they didn't die the day of, and they weren't injured the day of. They died from other things like a heart attack or stroke or something. They died after January 6th. Now, people try to blame their deaths on January 6th, of course, because there's nothing they would love more than to blame the deaths of police officers on people from the right because of what they did on January 6th. More people died in the riots of 2020, the BLM riots, than they did on January 6th. Everything these people do, everything, they can't be accountable for anything. They can't stand up and say we don't condone this without some new age math of trying to loop it back around to blaming Trump and January 6th. That's all they ever look. This is why I was so upset when January 6th happened, because I'm like, you guys are giving them ammunition that they're going to continuously use, and they're going to hold on. They're going to be talking about January 6th 20 years from now, because that's their version of Pearl Harbor. It really is. It's their Pearl Harbor. Christy Mayer over here basically said they're all complicit, and what she's referring to is the language that's been used. There's been language that podcasters have used. Hassan Piker is one of them. Now, Hassan Piker, to his credit, did on his stream today tell people to chill the fuck out, stop, celebrating this because it's dangerous. He's like, I could be next. And I don't have the clip because I don't know if anybody's clipped it yet. But that right there, that last statement is, I think, why he said this. One, I think he's concerned. I don't think he's concerned about from any legal sense, but I do think he's concerned that he could be next. And I think he's right, which I think what scares him about this and why he's said what he said, because he was supposed to debate Charlie Kirk September 25th, I think it was. And if people went after Charlie Kirk, he's I don't agree with him being exactly the same because I don't think he's as effective, but he's kind of the left's version of Charlie Kirk. Kind of. If you want to find anybody on the left that's similar to Charlie Kirk, he's the closest I can think of. I don't think he's as good or exactly a good match for Charlie Kirk, but he's the closest I can think of. And I think he's got a point. If this starts something, he very well could be a target. And I think that's what he's fearful of. I really do. Because if people on the right say, okay, this is how you want to play it, this is what you want to do, these are the rules you want to set for this game, I'm going after that guy. Or I'm going after that guy. And that's what he's afraid of. And I think he's right. I really do. And that's what I'm afraid of. That's the danger of what happened today. I think that's the danger that has opened up. Even if we disagree politically on things, I'm not going to call for you to be, in-gamed. No one should, the only time I will say anything like that for anybody is if you molested a kid, you hurt animals, or the shooter here. As far as I'm concerned, this shooter, no jail, no trial, no jury, save money. Nope. Put them right against the wall. That's what I would say. I know it's not going to happen because we're not that type of nation, but sometimes I do think cruel and unusual punishment has its benefits, and I do think maybe we should consider bringing some of it back. I'm just saying. All right, so here's some of the language they've kind of said over the last decade.
Just don't even know why there aren't uprisings all over the country, and maybe there will be.
People need to start taking to the streets. This is a dictator.
There needs to be unrest in the streets for as long as there's unrest in our lives.
Enemies of the state.
Show me where it says that protests are supposed to be polite and peaceful.
Do something about your dad's immigration practices, you feckless.
When they go low, we kick them.
How do you resist the temptation to run up and wring her neck?
The biggest terror threat in this country is white men, most of them radicalized to the right.
I thought he should have punched him in the face. I said, even if you lost, he insulted your wife.
Yes.
He came down the escalator and called Mexicans rapists and murderers. He said, well, what do you think I should have done? I said, I think you should have punched him in the face and then gotten out of the race. You would have been a hero.
I'd like to punch him in the face. I said if we were in high school, I'd take him behind the gym and beat the hell out of him.
Punch some people in the face!
When was the last time an actor assassinated a president?
Look, I love Johnny Depp as an actor, but holy shit, when he made that statement, holy shit. So, I mean, these people, their language over the last, and look, I'm not saying they're the only ones. There are people on the right who have been radicalized, and their language is just as bad. The problem is they're not in a public, they don't have a public platform like these guys do. All this is on CNN, MSNBC. They're feeding their viewership with all this crap. And it radicalized a lot of these people. And all it takes is one nut job, as we saw today, to actually do some damage. And they can say, Captain, they can say ban guns all they want. We know. All you got to do is look at the UK and look at was it Minneapolis where this happened? There was I think 2 years ago, or maybe a year ago. 2 years, I think. There was a Christmas parade, and a guy drove his vehicle through the parade and killed several people. Then in the UK, you had I think similar events with cars, and you also had like mass stabbings and stuff, to the point where they've had to ban like bladed weapons and stuff in public, like knives and stuff, which caused that one girl who was defending herself from migrants to be charged because she brandished two like bladed weapons. It's ridiculous. They're banned. Yeah, I read about that, Power. They're banning machetes here in Australia now. So look, it's not the guns and it's not the weapon. It's the people. And that's the hard problem to solve. And people don't want to solve that problem. It's not politically convenient for them. Banning tools is not a solution. Preemptive actions are a solution, but that might get into too much surveillance. And that's the concern. That is concern. At what point do you violate civil liberties in the name of safety? And that's honestly, that's the debate that the U.S. has to have. They do. Every country should stop releasing repeated offenders. Depend on what your criminal offense is. I tend to agree with that. And there's one statement here in this whole thing that he wrote that I kind of agree. I agree with the whole thing, but I really think it's important. Tonight feels like some sort of invisible line has been crossed that we didn't even know was there. The last time I felt this was 9/11, when it was clear, without knowing the how and the what, that the world was about to change forever. And that's important. I think that's true. This event could have happened last July if they were successful at assassinating Trump, but they were not. They tried, but they were not. This time they were successful. So you have people on the right, you have people on the left who are both extreme. I think there's going to be people now, and hopefully this doesn't happen, but I'm concerned that there's going to be people now on both sides that are extreme that now think, okay, it's open season, and they're going to target people. They're going to find people they don't like, whether it be a YouTuber, whether it be a Twitch streamer, whether it be a political activist or a politician, and they are going to go after these individuals and kill or attempt to kill people that they disagree with. And I don't think people are ready for that, because my fear is if it happens again, that's just going to escalate it even more and more, to the point where we may have an outright active, look, this may sound nuts, but an active civil war, man. I really do fear that may be what's down the road. Because this guy says, and he's right, to murder a young father simply for doing debates and mobilizing young people to vote for a party that represents half of America. And that's an important part right here that I think gives a little bit of insight as to why they did what he did. Mobilizing young people to vote for a party. And he was very successful at that. He's very successful at getting people to register and vote for one side of the aisle. So successful that I feel like it pissed people off a lot.